It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show, and as those of you that have been listening know that I do 2 shows a week, and the first one I try to focus on, the personal bank concept, a lot of times how it works, common questions, just further education on understanding the whole concept, how to take control of your money, minimize taxes, maximize gains, get the positive arbitrage, all those things. And if you missed any of that stuff and you don't say, look, I don't know what is it he's talking about, I'm going to encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com, listen to any of the previously recorded shows. In fact, listen to the last show. I talked a lot about, what is your personal bank? How does it work? And some of the most common questions. And there's about a year's worth of shows there. So it's tons of content. Check it out. Listen to it anytime. Pass it on to others. I mean, that's what it's there for. And it can really, my hope is, my goal is simple, is to educate people and help them understand there's another way of growing your wealth and taking control of your money. And like I said, minimizing taxes and maximizing liquidity and creating positive arbitrage. In other words, earn interest on money you spent. That's interesting. So if you're not familiar with that, go to yourpersonalbank.com, check it out. The second show of the week, I really try to take a bigger picture view, current events, how it affects the economy, our money. Really, as I say, our money, our ability to earn, grow, and pass our money on. Okay, and that's really what it's all about, right? Retirement plan, all those kinds of things. But the bigger picture view. And unfortunately, in my opinion, this past year or so, I've had to really discuss a lot more politically oriented type of topics and subjects because, frankly, the government, local, state, federal, has inserted themselves into our lives, starting with the COVID shutdowns, far more than at any time I've ever experienced in my lifetime. That's for certain. So a lot of those actions and decisions that have been made by different government entities have impacted our lives, well, frankly, in a big way. And I just want you to know this. What I'm going to try to focus on today really is some, basic common sense. I think that's tremendously important because I find that, normally, I had a very successful mentor some years back who would always say, he was very, very famous for saying, well, common sense is uncommon. And he was kind of right. There just wasn't a lot of common sense in the world. But gosh, it seems like this past year or so, common sense is just taking a vacation. It's just gone. And I've had a lot of people give me compliments, respond to the shows and various thoughts I've shared. And they say, look, you're a thinker. You actually think things through. And I take that as a tremendous compliment because, I am. I also want you to understand I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm an independent. I have problems. I agree with some things with both parties, and I have problems with both parties, to be fair. I would be mostly defined as a libertarian. I'm more of a live and let live type of person. In other words, my attitude, if you wanted to define my political beliefs, it probably would be more of a constitutionalist, frankly. In other words, it's not my opinion. This is fact. Whether somebody wants to agree with it or not, it's just, fact is fact. I always like to say, look, you can agree with you can tell me, well, gravity isn't real. All you want. You can scream at the top of your lungs. Gravity's not real. Jump off a tall building and watch what happens. You're going to go splat. So you can disagree all you want, but it's the facts are the facts. And the facts are this. Our government was originally designed as a limited government designed to protect individual rights. In fact, in the Constitution, it talked about enumerated rights, or in other words, it listed the rights the federal government had, and a very specific list. There's like, I don't know, I could read it, but there's, 8, 9, 10 items. I'm not sure remember exactly at the moment, but certain specific things like protecting the borders and international commerce, things like that. Okay. And then it stated any of the rights not enumerated or listed here, in other words, are reserved for the states or the people. So, I mean, if you look at today's federal government, for example, it doesn't resemble anything like what the original Constitution and the original intention and the original founding of our country was like. I mean, there's no resemblance. In fact, today we're in the era of big government. I don't think anyone can argue that. Now, why is this so important? Well, it affects us, our lives, again, our ability to make money, keep it, pass it on, and in a lot of tremendous, it affects it in many ways that a lot of people are not thinking about. I'm going to use an example, a couple of them. And some of this I've shared before, but I think it bears repeating. You know, I listened to Biden's address to Congress recently. And I was going to comment on it originally, but I guess I'm a thinker. I wanted to sit back and give it and kind of percolate and think on it a little bit and really think about and read and do some research and think about how is it going to affect us, the American people? Many of the things that, he was proposing and wants to do. Already done some things, but looking at, laying out his plans. And really what I saw was, again, that I don't have an issue so much per se with, like, say, supporting infrastructure or, various other things that, Biden was talking about doing. The problem I have is the method to the solution. If you noticed, every single program or plan that Biden laid out involved government. In other words, government was in control. Government had the power, and government basically dictated what was going to happen, the rules of the game. That's where I have the problem. Because basically free, he's talking about things like everybody would have free child care. Everybody would have free school from ages 3 and 4. Everybody would have free 2 years of college, community college, all these kinds of things. He's going to send money. He wants to make it permanent, sending money to families because they have minor children. I have 2 teenage daughters. If they could do that, I guess. Based on certain income limits, I guess that's where the issue is. But it sounds good because a lot of people are going to get checks. A lot of people are going to get, if all this happens, will get, a couple of years of free college and all these kinds of things. Freebies and giveaways sound great. And when you get a check, that sounds awesome, right? Lots of people got a check last year. They sent out another one, a few months back, I guess. All right. And a lot of people receive that. And that, people like to get a check in the mail. I get that. That's human nature. Somebody sends me a check, I'm happy to cash it and use it, spend it, right? But the question really comes down to is why? Why is the government wanting to send so many people checks? And see, the answer is actually right in front of our face. What Biden and the Democrats understand, or the you can say socialists, the progressives, whatever you want to call them, they understand. So what do they want? I guess that's what really, here's the key thing. You need to understand their motivation. What is it they want? And I don't think this is something that anyone can disagree with, okay? I've said this repeatedly for years and years. An elected official, anyone who's elected, what the number one thing they want, you can pretty much be assured of, with very rare exceptions, is they want to be reelected. They got a pretty good gig, don't they? I mean, let's face it, being a congressperson or a senator or whatever, pretty darn good gig. So you can be confident in their desire to stay in office. And what many of the progressives, liberals, Democrats, whatever you want to call them, socialists, whatever, have come to learn is that if they basically give people stuff or send them money, those people become dependent on them. I mean, it's the welfare state. That's what they, in essence, they call it. By expanding the welfare state or expanding the number of people that become reliant and then, sadly, oftentimes become dependent even on the government, well, they tend to vote for them. They tend to vote to continue the checks. It's an insidious process. It takes advantage of people, in my opinion. And it really limits, to me, it's demeaning. I think my opinion is offensive and demeaning. I mean, why would I want somebody to quote unquote, take care of me? Why would I want a nameless, faceless government agency, entity? Why would I want to rely on them? Somebody I don't know, I'll never meet. I mean, let's face it. Well, any one of us listening, probably most, will never meet Biden face to face, or even their senator or representative or any. They have no idea who you are, your name, or anything about you, and probably never will, with very few exceptions. Why would you count on or want to count on basically a total stranger to rely on your future, your ability to make money, your ability to survive, live, eat, any of that? See, I guess what it really comes down to is, are we going to be... See, we've always been a society based on opportunity. America has been known as the land of opportunity for centuries. Are we going to continue to be that opportunity-based society, or are we going to become a dependent-based society? See, that's the choice we have going forward. The good news is I don't think the ship has sailed. I don't think it's over yet. One of the best analogies I heard somebody say is, we're headed to we're on the Titanic, we're headed to the iceberg, and there's folks calling out there's an iceberg ahead. The question is, are we going to turn the wheel? And that's where I believe America is headed right now. Are we going to continue to be an opportunity-based society, or are we going to become a dependent-based society? Folks, that's socialism, basically. All right? And that, depending the direction we go, will have huge impacts on our economy, our money, our ability to, earn, save, and pass money on. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about this further, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today we're really talking about, are we going to be an opportunity-based society? Are we going to continue to be that? Or are we going to change to a dependent-based society? See, we already have a significant percentage of our population that is dependent-based. They get a good portion, if not all, of their income or whatever from government benefits, welfare, all the different programs that are out there, okay? And having a social safety net and all that is one thing. That's fine. Again, my libertarian leanings give me some challenges in those areas, but I don't have a huge issue with it. I understand some need for it. But to expand that to the point that we already have and continue for the proposals that the Biden administration is making to expand that dramatically. I mean, my gosh, they're looking at sending checks to families because they have kids. I mean, just because they have kids. I remember the social welfare state back in the day. I'm old enough to remember when they used to get paid for each, got paid more and more for each kid they have. I'm not certain about the details, but seems like they're trying to reinstate that kind of situation. We finally got rid of it to the positive because there was a lot of, sadly, people were just having kids to get more checks. A lot of times people that had no business having kids or raising kids, you know what I'm trying to say. And it's not a negative statement. It's just fact. Again, as I stated before, you can tell me you don't believe in gravity. Jump off a tall building and see what happens. It's just the facts, folks. So, like I said earlier, freebies, giveaways, all this side of stuff sounds good on the surface. But what you have to do is take 2 seconds. Think about it a minute. Just think about it for a few seconds. And think about, where's the money coming from? Why do they want to give me the money? That's one of the first questions anyone should ask. I mean, if somebody's giving you a check and just wants to give you a check, really for no reason, I mean, you didn't work for it, you didn't earn it, you didn't sell them something, do a business transaction, or sold something to get the money. They just want to give you a check. The first thing you probably should do is question the reason why. There should be some healthy skepticism on that. Why does the government, why do progressives in particular, want to give people's checks? You know, they're talking about minimum income and, you know, all these kinds of things, all these proposals they have. Folks, there's one thing they want. Elected officials want to be reelected. They want to stay in power. They want power. And progressives and those types, liberals and such, have determined that they gain a lot of their power by giving stuff to people. They get them to vote for them and continue to vote for them. So it gives them a voting block. Now, is it healthy? No. For the individual? No. If the person becomes dependent upon it, it's very unhealthy, frankly, from a human standpoint. It's not any good for the economy. It's terrible, in fact, for the economy, because here's why. Second question that should be asked is, where does the money come from? Does the government have some magic money tree? Well, they do. They got a printing press. There's 2 ways they basically get money, because here's the thing. And I've said this many, many times. You need to understand something. Government has no money. None. Zero. Nada. The government has no money. Where do they get it? Well, they either have to tax somebody, take it from someone else to give to you, or they print it. Basically create money out of thin air. Now, both happen to be bad, particularly for the economy and opportunity. Why? Well, if you take money from somebody by taxing them, you're taking a portion of what they worked for, what hard work, you know. Here's the thing you need to understand. You get this idea that, you know, wealthy people are just, you know, fat, dumb, lazy, taking, you know, they're sipping margaritas and eating bonbons and all that kind of stuff. Look, folks, I've been in the financial business for over 22 years. I've worked with well over 1,000 clients personally in that time. And I can literally count on both my hands the number of folks I've worked with that actually inherited a sizable amount of money to the point where they were able to, well, in essence, not do anything. Okay? Live a life of leisure. And by the way, or inherited or won the lottery. I have two clients who won lotteries. Okay? Significant amounts in the lottery. Talking millions. Okay? And I've got a handful who've inherited very significant sums, to the point they don't have to work anymore. I mean, out of well over 1,000, it's probably might be closer to 2,000, frankly, probably at least 1,500. There's less than 10 total. So this perception that there's a bunch of the wealthy folks, most wealthy people out there have just sitting around, basically didn't do anything for their money. They got it in the lottery or inherited it, is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. Okay, and I'm in the money business. I'm in the financial business, okay? I always tell people, look, when I'm looking at your financial statements and your tax returns, it's really hard to lie to me, okay? The rest, just about everybody, they worked hard for it. They put in, typically, in most cases, decades of consistent effort to build their wealth and made good investment decisions and everything else, and they worked hard for that. Look, if you were that person who'd worked for 20, 30, 40, 50 years to build some wealth, built a business or invested wisely, and you built some wealth, and then somebody came along and said, you know what? You know, we're going to just take a big chunk of that and give it to some other folks. How would you feel about that? Is it right? Is it ethical? Do you even care? Maybe not. But here's what you should care about. If you're one of those receiving, not one getting taken from. See, when folks who are wealthy, who actually worked hard, built a business, invested wisely, did what they did to build their wealth, generally speaking, they're the job creators. They invest, they spend money, they built a business, whatever. They're the creators of the economy oftentimes. They're the ones that spend the dollars and keep our economy going and keep our... By the way, it's a fact, they pay the vast majority of the taxes, okay? Way, like I've seen statistics showing roughly the top 10% of income earners pay all the taxes when you look at net tax revenues. I don't know exactly the number, but they pay it. I remember not too long ago, one of the we had a Republican candidate talked about half the people paid taxes and half in the country and half didn't, and he got roasted for it. He got slammed for it hard. But the reality was it was true. It was a statistical fact. At that time, half the country didn't pay taxes. Now it's even more skewed, okay? Here's my point. If you're not one of them receiving the monies, you're getting it from somebody who earned it, worked hard in most cases. And if you take enough of it from them, they're going to say, heck with this. Chuck it. Sell their business, stop spending money, stop earning money, or slow down, causing a slowdown in the economy, slowdown in jobs, slowdown in businesses, because it's just not worth it. There's a certain point where it just becomes not worth it. So is it right? Is it fair? Is it ethical? I think the answers to most of those questions are no. And if it was you getting taken from, you wouldn't appreciate it. And two, it's just bad all around for everybody, and it oftentimes creates a dependent class, which is not good either. None of these things are good. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about some positive things, though, I see going forward, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. And today, like I said, we're really talking about opportunity-based societies versus dependent-based societies, which is where we're kind of at a crossroads. I mean, listening to the Biden speech to Congress recently, and you look at all the programs that he's proposing, it really lurches the country dramatically towards the dependent-based side. I mean, here's the facts. This isn't political. This is common sense. So I hope, I hope some folks appreciate. I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to try to, cut through some noise and use a little bit of common sense that seems to be really lacking these days. And our federal government has spent $6 trillion in the last year, roughly year or so, starting from the beginning of the first COVID relief package. $6 trillion extra over on top of the normal, roughly $4 trillion budget, annual budget. Now, our debt is ballooning. It's like $28 trillion, I believe now, with interest and everything else. We're looking at like $30 trillion by the end of the year, which is an unfathomable amount of money. Based on the proposals that Biden has proposed, he's already spent about $2 trillion on the first package, and he wants to spend about another $4 trillion. So he's proposing basically to spend $6 trillion total, plus the $4 trillion budget, I guess. So that's something like $10 trillion. I've been talking about how our federal government's been spending money like a drunken sailor. I'm wrong. I heard somebody say that our government is spending money like an entire drunken Navy, and I think that's actually more accurate. Here's why this is so significant. I know there's a lot of people out there that have not really cared that much, and I'm talking about both sides of the political aisle, that much about the deficit, the spending, the level of spending. Well, here's the thing that everyone really needs to understand. You can't spend that kind of money without consequences. In fact, the amount of money we've spent already, personally, I believe are going to be some significant consequences. What are those going to be? See, here's the thing. I've seen some economic news, some economic studies already. Based on the amount of spending that has been done already, the amount of interest on the debt, just the interest, that's something that the government has to service, will, in the next between 5 and 10 years, will be unsustainable. And what I mean by that is the government will either have to spend less, which means less benefits, less money going out to folks, or they're going to have to raise taxes, or both, just to manage the interest on the debt. See, whether you care about the deficit or not right now doesn't really matter. I've said this analogy a couple times on this show. You tell me you don't believe in gravity, jump off a tall building and watch what happens. You can believe it all you want. You're going to go splat. If you don't care about the government deficit today, in a few years, you will. Because your benefits are going to get reduced, or taxes are going to go up, or both are going to happen. Plus, we'll probably be dealing with inflation on top of that. We're already starting to deal with some inflation. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. See, we saw it happen a few years ago with austerity measures, like with Greece. Greece was a great example of what we saw. They were forced into austerity measures. So was Germany and things like that. Look, many of those government leaders were very liberal and did not want to cut back spending and cut back benefits and all that. They didn't have a choice. Economics are economics. Money is money. Dollars are dollars. It's plain and simple. Numbers are numbers. Math don't lie. That's why I say the math don't lie. Look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie, folks. This is something we need to get serious about, and get serious about fast. Because if we spend more, if we do some of these programs that Biden is proposing, that time frame is going to be shortened dramatically in terms of our country will be forced into austerity measures. Okay? We'll be like Greece. All right? That's what folks need to understand. Now, what's going to happen as a result of that? Well, a lot of people say, well, that's fine. Obviously things like the stock market and real estate values and all that would be affected dramatically. Probably like what most of us have never seen in our lifetimes. But some people say, that's all right, I'm going to invest in Bitcoin or things like that. Folks, let me remind you of a little bit of history. See, the last time we had some situations like this, the Great Depression, one of the things people flocked to because, we were tremendous economic hardship and problems, they flocked to gold. What did the federal government, what did Roosevelt do? Outlawed gold. What's the number one thing today? Cryptocurrencies. Do you think the federal government, will not attack cryptocurrencies if people start flocking to it to avoid this other stuff? Just a couple weeks ago, Turkey outlawed it. Okay? Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to talk about this further, so don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. We're wrapping this up. Today we're really talking about our society. Are we going to be an opportunity-based society, or are we going to change to a dependent-based society? Based on our current administration and the proposals that Biden made recently to Congress in his speech, I did watch it. I think if you didn't, most people, I think, would have found it, frankly, extremely boring. The thing is, though, in listening to what Biden was actually proposing, he's proposing something like an additional $6 trillion of spending on various programs. And based on some economic reports that I've already read and seen, that the interest on the debt alone that we have, based on the spending that's already been done, the government will be forced to either raise taxes just to pay the interest, not the debt off, just the interest. They'll be forced to increase taxes or reduce benefits or do some of both. Now, they're talking about all types of benefits. So security benefits, any kind of benefit somebody's receiving from the government. And if they do indeed enact some of these proposals that Biden is proposing, that time frame of 5 to 10 years will be dramatically reduced, which means we could be facing a situation where austerity measures will be needed, like Greece had to do, and much of Europe not too long ago, a few years back. And people aren't going to like it. See, you can ignore the facts, you can ignore the numbers, but the facts are we're going to be dealing with this whether we like it or not. If we can keep going down this path, we got to start changing our tune really fast and really strong. And we got to start making this fiscal responsibility stuff really forefront and really important, to the tune of like, folks don't get elected unless they support this stuff. That's what needs to start happening, or it's just going to slam us in the face. Sadly, very few people are focused on that right now, but I predict it's going to be a huge issue not too distant future. The other part of all that is inflation. By printing all of these dollars, making all these and spending all this money, it just causes the cost of goods and services to increase. And I mean the cost, again, the freebies sound great, but guess what? You're going to pay more in inflation than you're going to receive from the freebies. And I'm talking about everybody, because we all eat. I'm talking about food, housing, clothing, all of it. What can you do? I've talked about this a few times. When we're dealing with probable higher inflation, there's really two major areas that you can put money that will actually do well. Tangible assets, things like real estate, things will be worth more. Perfect example, I have a contractor literally the other day said to me, I'm really concerned about inflation going forward. In fact, we already have it. To give you an idea, a sheet of plywood last year was $9. Today it's $43. Folks, that's what's going on. If you're building something, the cost of building something has jumped dramatically because a lot of dollars are circulating. And secondly, there's been a lot of restrictions and trade and things like that because of COVID. Some of that will alleviate, but it's not all COVID related. With all these dollars floating out there, more dollars chasing items, cost of items are going to go up. I've already seen the price of beef in the grocery stores has increased about 40% on average across the country already. So when you're talking about gas, food, clothing, housing, stuff that everybody needs, everybody's going to pay more, and that might as well be a tax, right? In fact, it's more insidious than a tax. The other area that you can focus on is an interest rate type of accounts. It's where your personal bank shines. Higher interest rates environments, historically, is very sensitive to interest rates. Dividends that were paid by the insurance companies, when there were higher interest rates, were in the double digits. Okay? So it kind of floats with the interest rates, if you know what I'm trying to say. So your personal bank can be a good solution to park some money as a diversification tool, eliminate market risk, reduce taxes, and an inflation hedge, by the way. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more info. But the other thing I wanted to touch on, because like I said, I'm trying to focus on the bigger picture here today, is with all this money, suggestions of the benefits here, benefits there. Where's this money coming from? Because the government doesn't have any. Folks, the government has no money. I loved it. I didn't love it. I was being facetious. When Biden was talking about jobs, and the government creating jobs. Folks, the government doesn't create jobs. They don't create anything. They take from people and give it to others. They just redistribute. Okay? Or they print it out of thin air. Government doesn't create jobs. That's something, boy, I wish, that's like financial literacy 101. That's something I wish the majority of people understood. We just got to do a better job of educating. Free enterprise, businesses, capitalism creates jobs. In fact, if you want to enhance the economy, we saw it just a year or so ago. Reduce government interference. Reduce government regulations. Like it or not, that's what the Trump administration did. And that was one of my favorite things about what they did, was reducing the regulations. Yes, they also reduced corporate income taxes, which was also beneficial for the economy. And for it was a rising tide. One of those things where, see, you want a society of opportunity. Everyone was benefiting. All classes, all types, all people were doing better because the economy was better. Oh, let me put it this way. Everybody that wanted to be a part of the society was benefiting because they had more opportunity. We're the land of opportunity, and we have been for over 200 years. We're at a crossroads, I believe, coming up soon, particularly in these midterm elections, to determine which direction we're going to go. Now, the positive thing is, if you listen to the show, you know I was getting really, really frustrated, but I've actually, in the last few weeks, and particularly, have gotten more and more encouraged because I see people standing up and saying, no, enough's enough. This is not the type of society I want to live in. This is not what I want to be a part of. And they're fighting back, and states are fighting back, and politicians and government business leaders and just people of all stripes are starting to stand up and say, no, this is I don't want this. See, I guess this is all you really need to know with the direction of our current government. I think it's a really well-known fact that Biden was elected primarily. The funny thing is, the number one reason the people voted for him is because he wasn't Trump, because so many people hated Trump personally. I openly stated I didn't like him personally either, okay? But I did like his policies, particularly eliminating or reducing government regulation. See, bureaucracy is one of our biggest enemies. Government bureaucracy interferes with our lives and businesses and economy more than just about anything out there. And the more that you can cut red tape, the better. Okay? That was one of my favorite things that they were doing. Of course, all that's been reversed. But I'm digressing here a second. Biden was the number one reason poll after poll showed it is because he wasn't Trump, and also because he was considered the most moderate of all the candidates that were running on the Democratic side. He even said himself famously, "What, do I look like a radical? Look at me." Because he ran as a grandfatherly type figure whose people returned back to normal, the things the way he used to be, calmer. Most people thought, in fact, recently AOC even said she was surprised herself because she even thought that Biden would be much more conservative of a president administration than he is. In fact, she even said she approves of basically what he's doing. And AOC is a self-described socialist. Basically, it was a sleight of hand. What people voted for is not happening. Now, here's why I'm getting encouraged. Because I remember a time, I'm old enough to remember when George Bush Sr. stood on the platform and said no new taxes. Then 2 years later, raised taxes, and 2 years after that, got thrown out of office. Big time. Because the American people don't like to be lied to. In fact, people in general don't like to be lied to. They don't like sleight of hand. They don't like bait and switch. I mean, in fact, think about this a minute. When you run into a used car salesman, high pressure type, you know what I'm talking about, and they're trying to pull the bait and switch on you, or somebody's trying to sell you one, or promise one thing, trying to sell you something else. We hate that. We revile that, right? We're repulsed by that. People hate that with a passion. Well, personally, I feel very, very much lied to, and I think a lot of people do. A lot of people voted for Biden primarily because they felt like he was going to be a more moderate candidate. A more return to normal. That was all the big thing. That's what the media was talking about. That's what Biden himself talked about. The whole thing. Well, do I look like a radical, right? Yet AOC, they've been AOC and they've been talking about him being the most progressive president in history. Might as well have elected Bernie Sanders, frankly, or AOC herself. What's the difference? And here's what I firmly believe in. I believe that the majority of Americans today don't want that level of socialism or dependent-based society in America. That's not what they want. Okay? And they were lied to. In other words, Biden pulled a big bait and switch. Now, why did he do it? I don't know. Did he make a big sudden change in what he wanted to do? Or is somebody else, a lot of people think, is he really not in control? I mean, there's many theories out there. I don't know. But the reality is, he pulled a bait and switch. The American people were lied to. The folks that voted for him, for the most part, most of them, were lied to. And I believe there's going to be tremendous repercussions come midterms and beyond in terms of rejection of that. Rejection, just like there was for George Bush Sr. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm hanging my hat on the fact that people are not ready for socialism. People are not ready for a dependent-based society. They don't want to count on some nameless, faceless government bureaucrat for their future, their financial future, their retirement, or anything else for that matter. The majority, at least, don't. Okay? And I think the message is becoming increasingly clear that we don't want to be babysat. How's that? We're adults. And you know what? We've been known as the land of opportunity for centuries, over a couple hundred years. And that's what made the big part of what made this country great and why people came here in the first place. I mean, why are people still trying to come here? Because it's still the land of opportunity. It's still better than just about anywhere else. Now, that could change, but I'm increasingly confident and encouraged that it's not going to change. In fact, the pendulum will probably shift and swing the other way, and frankly, far more than many people. The pendulum's always over the momentum always go overboard. They go too far. It's going to go. I mean, I think Biden and the administration is going way, way far left and progressive, far more than what the most Americans want. And that pendulum's going to shift strong back the other way. There's going to be a backlash, in other words. Now, we'll see what happens. That could be, we'll see how that all plays out. But all we can do is diversify, minimize our taxes, because it sure looks like it's going to be higher in the future. So invest in, like I said, tax-free options, things like that, like your personal bank. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information, and be happy to discuss with you, answer questions, and maybe help you give some guidance and direction about, the future and where we're going. So as always, stay tuned to the Your Personal Bank Show. And as long as it's still on our money, I'm going to say, in God we trust.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.